I'm Amber.
Hi, I'm Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Corinne.
Hiya, I'm Danielle.
Hi, I'm Kelly.
And together we are UnfiltHERed, where the her is no longer silent.
UnfiltHERed is the coming together of 5 neurodivergent women, and together we will be discussing all things neurodiversity. Autism, ADHD, parenting, being parent carers, inclusion, and how these are led by our experiences of womanhood.
All voices are welcome here, and we do not discriminate. Our goal is to create a real, inclusive, safe space and community for everyone to be their unfiltered self.
This space is all about community and not competition, empowering others through their differences and removing stigma.
Whether you are here for yourself or a loved one, you are welcome here. So come and join us in this unfiltered conversation today.
Just a quick disclaimer before we begin. Even though we discuss certain medical conditions such as autism and ADHD, we are not medical professionals and cannot offer any medical advice. And this is not a diagnostic tool. This is a tool to be used in terms of your education and to gain support and clarity. But please don't take any medical advice from this. If you do have any concerns, please go and speak to your GP. Also, please note we are all neurodiverse, so you're going to get a lot of talking over each other. We're going to swear a little bit, and sometimes we're going to forget what we're saying mid-sentence, and that's okay. This is a female-based platform that aims to empower the voices of women who often, especially within the neurodivergent community, tend to be lost. As we are all females, we are all born females, we can only give our lived experience as females. But obviously, regardless of gender, you are welcome here, as this aims to be an inclusive space. I hope you enjoy the episode.
I don't even know what day of the week it is.
No.
It's Friday today, but it's...
Is it?
Yeah, it's Friday.
Is it?
Yeah, Brody went back to school on Tuesday. He went back on the 2nd. Like, how
What's that about?
savage? So
That is savage.
he broke up on the 16th, and to be fair, like, he was desperate. Like, anyone that's got autistic kids, like, you'll get it. Like, the last week of school was horrific. You know, he was really struggling with the change of routines, and like, I was, to be honest, I needed the break. I was just done with the whole thing. He was done with the whole thing. So I was quite happy for him to break up on the 16th. And then when I was like, oh, hang on, what? He goes back on the 2nd.
Yeah, you guys have got, your time is completely different to us.
Yeah, I don't know.
We broke up a week later, and my kids don't go back until next week.
Yeah,
See, that's normally us. That's
normally
normally us. We're normally still in there at like 22nd, 23rd.
Yeah.
You
And
go
we
back
don't
like the
normally
8th
go
or the
back till
9th.
like 8th. And then this year, our new head decided to break everyone up on the 15th.
I think
Like, I wouldn't have minded that. I'm still trying to get the authorization for the time we took off.
well, you had it now.
I don't give a damn. I
You
said
got
to them,
fine.
listen, I'll pay your fines. I don't really care. I just don't
You
want my
pay the
kids to
fine.
be penalised with the time, like, because they came out of school really excited because they had the 100% attendance certificates that they give out. And why should they be punished and maybe next time not get one for taking time that they're entitled to? I don't care. I'll pay your fines. You can look down on me. You can send it to the attendance officer. Punish me, fine. I just don't want them affected because it's not their fault. But
Really agree with schools like rewarding attendance. I don't understand why that is something to reward people for.
their previous school didn't just reward attendance, they also like highlighted those who had bad attendance. So one day kids all came out of school, some of them with these bright green letters, the ones who had got rewarded, some of them with bright red letters. I lost my fucking shit. I went to the head teacher and I said, listen, don't you ever give my child one of those letters again, highlighting the fact that he's had bad attendance, especially when you know why he has bad attendance. Because Chase was really suffering with his asthma back then. So we used to have more time off, like for hospital appointments. Some mornings we'd have to go in late because we were living in that house that had the mold. So he was literally, some days he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I lost my mind. I was like, how dare you highlight to him that, do you know what I mean? Something that's out of his control. They never gave him a letter again, ever.
Why are they demonising that a child might be poorly, or there might be a family situation, or whatever?
It could literally be anything. Or they could just have parents that just don't get up on time or don't bother. You're punishing a child.
The parents might have something going on. We're all human.
It could be anything.
You know, don't send your kids to school. kids can have a mental health day. Kids can, I mean, I don't think my son would have got one for last term because he had a couple of mental health days, because I was like, he's really struggling, I'm just going to keep him off.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm very lucky here because Oscar goes to a SEN and they always, I'm gonna jinx this now, but they normally always love the fact that he's traveling or going
Yeah.
somewhere. They embrace that as a learning opportunity.
Mm.
Always late. So I
Yeah.
don't I'm never going to apologize for being late because we get there and he's regulated. If I was to push him in the morning for time, he would get there really unregulated and he'd have a really bad day.
Exactly.
So because he's got the eating disorder, I refuse to leave this house until he's eaten at least one cracker and had a drink.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't eat or drink at school.
And it's more
So
important.
that means if I get him to school on time, he's not eaten since yesterday.
Yeah.
So and sometimes we just rock up and I just go, sorry, we're late. He didn't want to come, and they laugh.
Yeah.
And because they know that it's really difficult for me to get Oscar out of the house in the morning. Like we might have a massive hoo-ha about shoes for half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, he's not easy. So I think that even mainstream schools, when they persecute kids for being late, not attending, they're not actually looking at what's going on in that family. What if a family's got loads and loads of kids? And a couple of them are neurodivergent and they don't like that routine in the morning? That's going to impact all of the children.
That's exactly what it's like in our house. Caleb
exactly.
gets his taxi at 8 o'clock. No, 8:30. It comes every morning. The boys have to be at school, nursery and school for 8:30. Well, 8:45. So they ain't going to be there on time, because if we go, so obviously Luke's at home. So if we go and Caleb sees us go to the school, he'll melt down because it's not his routine. He needs to see us there. He needs to see it. So we wait with it. He gets his taxi and we go late. And I told the school this. And luckily they haven't, brought it up or anything. But that's our routine. That's because of Caleb's needs, and I ain't going to change.
No.
And risk him and his anxiety and the stress it would cause all of us for the sake of being 10 minutes late for school.
I have to say though, in defense of that school, after I addressed it, they never gave him one again, and they did take it on board. And they did used to encourage Chase to go away. They used to encourage all of the stuff we used to do. They invited me in to then advocate and teach them because they were willing to learn and they accepted their mistakes. It's the new school that seem to think they know it all and aren't willing to work with me. So as much as the previous school did make that mistake, I have a lot more respect for them than I do the current one, because it's a very different approach. Whereas I don't hold grudges. If I address something with you, you either apologise, you take it on board. Like with the whole thing with, remember what happened with LOL? I have an utmost respect for them now because of how they handled it. I don't hold a grudge as long as you are willing to learn from a situation. Whereas this new school just seemed to, nope, we have our way. I'm not willing. And I just told them straight, I know more than you do. So work with me. I don't.
Is just not such a purpose for how the world is now and how life is now, how families are now. Like, back in the day, a 5-year-old could walk themselves to school. That wouldn't happen now.
No.
So how can you expect, like, if you've got someone, like I was talking to someone not long ago and they had a kid that got transport and a kid that didn't, and the kid that, I can't remember what it was, but basically she was on her own with them. Her partner was going to work. So she was like, I can't leave my child unsupervised and let them get in the cab. And then I can't make my other one walk to school on their own. So how does that... What do you want me to do? I physically can't split myself in half. And they were just like, oh, well, you lose the transport, because that's the new one, isn't it? They just drive off if you're not there on time. So,
I do I massively think there needs to be a reframing on. It seems to be school and then home, but actually there needs to be more working together, because when we're talking about reasonable, I did a post about it this morning, when we talk about reasonable adjustments, being flexible and promoting the rights of people that have got extra stuff going on, that's always based on somebody's idea of how much effort they're going to give you, because there's not really a barrier, there's not really red tape, there's just levels of effort that people are prepared to give you or not. So this school, they're being resistant, they think they know everything. That's because they're not prepared to be flexible and consider your way of thinking, because that's not their natural response. So therefore that means extra effort. Yeah, so a
Yeah.
lot of the time they say, you know, oh, there's red tape, there's this rule, there's that rule. They're excuses. They're not reasons, they're excuses
No.
because based on the level of effort that they're willing to give you. They could make more of an effort, but they don't want
Yeah.
to. Naturally, that's not what they would do. And people are ultimately in that situation wanting everyone to just accept a blanket level of care. No, these are the rules. This is what happens. If it's uncomfortable for you, we're just doing the same for everyone because it's minimal
It's just a
effort.
fair shrug.
Doodah. Because they just want to treat, you know, each kid the same way. And it's like, you can't do that. It has to be individualized. And that goes
And they
for
don't like when you challenge them either. I think a lot of it's
No.
ego because
massively.
first school again, they wanted to learn from me. They treated me as a professional and then invited me in, and they literally hired me to come in and run coffee mornings and asked me questions after that.
It's rigid thinking,
That
isn't
is-
it?
yeah.
You know, the
Yeah,
whole
what
premise
rigid
of school.
thinkers? This is the
Pardon?
thing I don't get. We're, as autistic people, supposed to be the rigid thinkers.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't understand that because we're the ones that tend to be asking for flexibility.
Mm.
Then you can always find it will be like a school that will be, or
Yeah.
an organisation, let's say, who will be like, oh, let's do rigid thinking. Like, it doesn't make sense. Sorry, Kelly.
But it's because they don't like anything unmeasurable. Yeah.
Mm.
So if they start considering reasonable adjustments, then there would have to be probably in their mind some kind of limit or level to that. And what they don't like is there isn't.
I always respect people who can hold their hands up and say, you know, actually, I made a mistake.
Mm.
Teach me, help me learn and
Yeah.
improve. And they were fantastic. So,
Yeah. And also there's a massive argument there anyway about reasonable adjustments. And when I would never dream of taking my children abroad in the summer because the resorts are full, it's too hot.
Yeah.
So we have to choose times where it's quieter to travel. It's maybe not as hot. It's not high peak. And I've always religiously done that. I've taken my children out of school to go to live theatre before and said it's not acceptable to go at weekends. It's too busy. We need to go, to central London midweek when it's not as busy. We need to travel off peak times. All of those things add to the whole experience of it. So I would never apologise for that. And if someone wants to fine me for putting my children's needs first, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fine me.
Yeah. Or take me to court. The judge will side with me, I guarantee you.
Yeah. And you can find me. I won't be paying it because I don't have any money because I've just been on holiday and I've spent all my money on holiday.
We had a
But you
great
can
time.
find me.
That's what you're getting
Love
from
it.
me.
But I think there is a whole a massive pressure on parents in general, isn't there, to fit into this traditional idea of how things are supposed to look, going on holiday, day trips, all of that. And I think when you're a neurotypical, neurodiverse person or parent of, I'm neurotypical, but I'm parent of someone who isn't, you have to kind of scrap all the rules and just go with what the needs are, place them in the center and just go with it. And you're always going to get people question your intention there because it doesn't make sense to them. Like for me, the neurotypical brain tries to reorganize everything back into the boxes where they're supposed to belong. And I'm aware that I'm not supposed to be doing that because that doesn't suit Oscar, but my brain will naturally want to do that. So it's really hard for me to squash all of those boxes and get inside the way things work for him. And I can do that because I'm his mum and I understand him fully. But I think other adults that are neurotypical, dealing with neurodiverse children that are not connected to them emotionally, don't have that drive to understand them. That's where the effort comes. Like my love for my child's unconditional. So although something's uncomfortable for me, in my natural brain, I will still make an effort to do that. I know that it meets his need. If somebody's just doing their job and they're just rocking up to a school and all the other kids are really easy and you've got you can see where and how our children are starting to become a pain in the backside for people that are those rigid thinkers. Because for me, I don't have an issue with going, oh, I know that's how we should be doing it, but this is how we are going to do it because this works for us, because I know the results of it not working is worse. In those situations at school where you've got kids that are masking, that actually do appear to be surviving, where the parents are picking up, and then there's a lot of behavior or a lot of acting out of things that have happened earlier on in the day, those teachers are not seeing that.
No.
You're picking it at home. So that's where I think that gap is. So because there's not really an understanding. I think you only really get that understanding from lived experience, from
Yeah. But even neurodivergence aside, you've got like various different issues. And then like I come from a very low class background where we had no money. My mum was a single mum. There's times when she couldn't afford heating and electricity or to feed us, let alone worried about holidays. And so that's another factor, the peak prices and all them kind of things. We never got to experience the stuff that other people did when they can afford it. And it's just the whole system is very, very unfair, even not just with neurodivergent children, but low income households and other, you know, factors that people don't consider, families that have got several children. And it's not fair because there's so many people out there that aren't experiencing these things as well for other reasons. And I was a product of that, and it's horrible.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean, I grew up in a council house. We didn't even have a TV. I was one of the only kids in my class when I went to secondary school that didn't have a TV. You know, I grew up in a council estate and used to go robbing plums and pick flowers from people's gardens and sell them down the posher end of the street to get money for the sweet shop and all of that. And I didn't leave the UK until I was 18. I didn't go anywhere on holiday. I think my parents used to take us to like Hastings, which is like an hour away. But I still have lots of memories on the beach and running around and all of that kind of stuff. But the balance for us is very weird because Brendan grew up in a family where his dad was like a managing director of a big company in London, drove a really flash BMW. They had a cleaner, he had a dishwasher, you know, free holidays a year, private school. You know, and he has, I suppose, different ideas of what families look like. Whereas I'm like, when we go on holiday, I'm like, we're so lucky, you know, we're really lucky. My kids understand and they know that not all kids go on holiday on an airplane, you know, and there's been years, you know, we haven't always had money to take them away. There's been years where they're like, are we going on holiday this year, Mum? And I'm like, no, we can't afford it, you know, and that's the reality of it, isn't it? You know, but for Brendan, when he was younger, he never had to worry about any of that. But his parents also used to go abroad quite a lot and leave him at home. You know, there's always, whereas for our kids, if we're going away, they're coming with us and it's a really big deal and it is really appreciated and they feel lucky to be there. Whereas in other families, I think there's different dynamic, isn't there? When travel is not a problem and you go skiing every year, that's not your holiday. You're just going skiing because you like to go skiing, and then you're also going to go on a summer holiday, and then you also might get some winter sun, you know, or you might have a house abroad or whatever. It becomes, like Brendan said, it becomes like maybe not special. Is anyone pro making New Year's resolutions? I'm not. I don't make them. Has anyone made any?
No, not really.
No.
I like setting goals, but I feel like a goal.
I was gonna say, for me, it's more like goals. Like I kind of like to look at what I've managed to achieve from like last year's, and then I don't know. Pardon?
You had an amazing year.
It's been it has. I'm not gonna lie. It has been a good year, and even when I look at the vision board I made last year, there's loads of things that I've managed to achieve and things I really wanted and things that were really getting me down last year that are now a part of my life. And I found that's been the case previous years for quite a few. So I don't like to necessarily set those because I feel like that's a lot of pressure. But I do like to I like to have a review and think of things I can do to either make life better or things to work towards. So it's more in a positive way because I feel like when you set those resolutions, for example, it kind of puts pressure on you and then you feel like a failure if you don't like succeed and that kind of thing. So for me, it's kind of just like, oh, I'd like to maybe consciously make an effort in these areas. So it's not so, you know.
I don't do resolutions. I'm more like you. I think we're all quite like that, aren't we? It's more like New Year's affirmations rather than
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah. And I do it throughout the year, not just New Year's. I'll look like every month, I think, okay, this is going really well, but this area is not, maybe. So it's kind of just like something I do naturally, but because it's New Year's, I might give it a bit more focus. And I kind of see each year as a new kind of thing coming. So I kind of get that little bit of excitement and I'm going to try and do this. But I feel like September always feels more like a new year to me because it's like the new academic year. We've been off for 6 weeks, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm more excited at September than I am, say, like this time of year because we're just like midway through the academic year. So
yeah, I do get a new year energy. Like I always like to have a plan. And I like to plan something or a movement or something in every month that I'm in. But I do think that we are completely different people in every year of our lives, whether you class that from being from September or from January.
Exactly.
I think that you do move and shift your energy about anyway, and naturally, like I sometimes think, oh, that worked out. It wasn't really, I didn't really have a plan, but it's, you know, so sometimes I think the universe works in your favor a bit sometimes and puts in your path what you need.
Exactly.
Moves out what you don't.
I think your energy also helps to kind of draw it to you as well. I feel like what you put out, you kind of get back. Like when I'm really focused and excited about or like thinking about something I want to work towards, I always find that it kind of comes to me better. So like last year, wanting to change the kind of work I was doing and really like thinking about it. And a few years before when I was really like focused on getting a new house, I remember I did a vision board session with a group of parents from my charity and everyone's putting all their stickers in and stuff. And at that point, I was so depressed because where I was living, I literally just cut out this picture of this house from a magazine and it said, a house to call my own or something along those lines. I stuck it on the paper and I said, there is nothing else I want. I just want a home. That's all I care about. And a few months later, we got our house. And that is all I focused on and didn't care about anything else. I didn't want anything. I just wanted a home. And I feel like that energy, putting it out there, is what brought it to us. So
it's that positive energy gives positive results. It's that, you
and
know,
just
like the secret book where it's so this is where I need to take a leaf out my own book because I'm quite, and I spoke to the therapist about this on Monday. I'm very much so half cup empty at the moment. And this is where I'm kind of trying to feel the positives and things instead of just feeling how it's going bad. Because for me, I'm like, that's gone bad. Well, that's it now. I'm in the mood and I'm just gonna, it's ruined my life. The week's gone, the day's rubbish. And I need to kind of shift. I know I need to do it. That shift that energy and things like you said the other day, Charlotte, in the voice note is what's good in my life. What do I have? What am I grateful for? And and I'm trying. I'm gonna do it though. I don't want to say this year's gonna be my year, but I think if I just make them little changes, I think good things will come.
They will, I promise you, because I was like that and I just went through these years.
You feel like you're in a hole, really.
You kind of like in autopilot, you're kind of just going with the motions, but you just feel depressed and down and dark, and it's like this dark cloud follows you. And I think that saying actually is so true. And as soon as I started being really optimistic, not letting things bother me as much, they still, don't get me wrong, I'm not like just happy sunshine and rainbows all the time, but I try not to dwell on stuff or overthink, or if something goes wrong, rather than, oh my God, the world is over, I'm like, well, I can't change it now. There's no point crying and over something, just move on. And don't, when I feel myself overthinking, I literally stop myself and I'm like, nope, move on from it. You can't change it now. It's just going to make yourself feel worse. And I try to, like I said to you before, think on the bright side. So wake up in the morning, oh, I've got to do the school run. But I really love my kids and I'm lucky to be able to take them to school. Oh, I've got to do housework, but I really love my house. So how about I be grateful that I even have a house to clean? Those kind of things. And I just try to do it in the morning and it really like completely changes everything. And life has genuinely been better.
Isn't it?
Because you're attracting the positive,
positive energy,
that kind of energy. When you, like, you know, when you look on, there's like that scale you can look on and you look at things like envy, hate, vengeance and all that stuff is really low vibe. When you look at things like positivity, love, gratitude is my favorite one. It's really positive energy, and you just naturally start to have things going better for you. Before, when I heard people talk about it, I'm like, all right, you sound like right airy fairy, like, okay. But when I started to do it, it's changed my life. Kelly will know, because Kelly saw me when I was at that kind of peak time in Amber. When we first started talking, I was just so depressed. But proof is in the
Different
pudding.
energy. I think that it's a bit like if you're on a downer, and then something happens, you're naturally going to be on a downer about that, and then something else, but actually it works in reverse. Like Charlotte was saying, you can climb as a person. So once things start going right, you're then generating a positive energy. So that's then going to lead into the next thing, So reframing, it's really powerful. You know, in a textbook, you'd read it and think, yeah, all right, whatever. But the results are but I think you've already reframing a lot, Corinne. I've noticed a massive difference in you. I think you're already reframing a lot.
You even look
snowballing. I think you've got some control there. Like it could have very easily, like, you know, known you for a while now. I think of, you know, maybe 6 months ago.
It's really
happened recently would have completely snowballed you, and you just still be off your feet. But actually, within 24 hours, you framed it, and you were a different mindset. So I think your tolerances have grown.
And I can see it with like the health anxiety. I mean, I'll throw that out there. Like that really threw me down, and I do have my days where I struggle now, but I've changed my mindset, and it's kind of like I'm feeling a certain way, or I'm feeling ill. Oh, something bad's gonna happen, and I'm like, no, Corinne, what are the odds of that happening? Is it going to happen? Let's change it. And then I focus on something else, and then that keeps me going. And I've kind of realised that things that make me happy, like things that happen that are like, oh my God, really make me happy. More than, I suppose, a typical person would feel that. And I'm like, oh, I get that buzz. And I just want that all the time. And I think I will get that if I just keep climbing. And I just feel, I don't know, I feel more relaxed. I think there's little things that are knocking me down, like things I say, but I'm just so trying to get to a point where bad things may happen, or there may be people that may not like you, and that's okay, you know, because there's always going to be people that don't like you. That's the way of life.
But can I just say how to reframe that, Corinne, is people don't not like you, they don't know you.
That's the thing.
They're judging you. You know, when people don't like me, they're judging me on an idea of me. They don't know me.
From either someone else's point of view or for what they assume.
So anyone who meets you wouldn't have a reason to not like you. But people that are not willing, and they want to make their own mind up about you without putting the work in to get to know you, again, an effort thing, might decide they don't like the idea of you based on somebody else's idea, maybe based on something that's not true. So there isn't anything about you to not like. So somebody doesn't like you, or you feel like someone doesn't like you, let them have that, because that's not actually who you are. They don't like that. They don't like their own version of you. It isn't you. They don't like you because they don't know you, because they're not willing to invest in that relationship. So if someone's not going to turn up for me and invest in getting to know me, I don't care if they don't like me.
And on top of that, as long as you consciously make an effort to be a good, like, I always make sure that I like me. So I try to stick to my morals. I try not to let other people change who I am as a person. So if someone's cruel, I'm not going to lower myself to their standards. I always make an effort to just remain who I am. And I find that as long as you can sleep at night and know that you're a good person, that's all that matters, because people may not like you for various reasons. People will have their own point of view. People won't know you, and like Kelly said, they'll be using someone else's point of view, and that person might be a bad person. So if someone's choosing to dislike you, but you know in your heart you are a genuinely good person, they are the issue. And if people will take someone else's opinion and just choose not to like you again. They are the issue. So live your life. As long as you maintain being a good person, that's all that matters. And I know I can go to bed at night and I know that I go above and beyond for people. I know that I'm genuinely a good person in my heart. I never do anything maliciously. And if sometimes I may do things wrong, if somebody addresses it with me, I will take a step back and just be like, you know, actually, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I will change. And I can live with that. And I used to get really, Kelly and Amber would have seen on my Facebook sometimes, I let things get to me. I'll let people bring me down. I let people drag me down. But I've come to realize now, actually, they're projecting sometimes their own self-hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stop and I think to myself, have I done anything wrong? Am I being a good person? And as long as I can see yes, I say, do you know what? They're obviously the issue. I'm like, I like justice, like a justice warrior.
Justice.
And so I used to get really upset when I do something decent and the person doesn't do it back. And it used to bother me because I used to be like, why would someone do that? Like, I always try to like really help people, but why aren't they the same as me? And now that I realize, actually, you shouldn't always expect people to have the same morals or the same views or perception as you will be a lot happier as well, because everyone's different. And also, sometimes somebody may dislike you or disagree with your opinion. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because we live in a very diverse world. Everyone's going to have likes and dislikes, and you know, someone might not like the way I dress or the way I speak or how I, you know, present myself or whatever it may be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. They are also entitled to their opinions. So
yeah, I always think you're right, Charlotte. I always think uncomfortable spaces. Yeah, when we are in uncomfortable spaces with people, it's when change happens. Most change happens because of a conflict. You know, and the biggest fights that we ever win, they don't include screaming and shouting. They include sitting down, speaking about it as adults in a calm manner about things that we don't agree with, because that's how we make changes. Standing across the road from someone shouting out your shit, it's not going to do anything.
No, constructive criticism. Like, I'll go into a meeting and I'll say, listen, I've been working my best, but if it is a load of shit, please tell me. Don't be afraid to give me that negative feedback. I actually like it, because I know I'm not perfect. I know there's areas I need to learn and improve. Tell me, otherwise I can't. So always tell me if I've done something wrong, if I'm not got it quite right, or it's a little bit rubbish, because I want to get better. And you can't get better if you've got yes people around you constantly saying, oh, you're doing a good job, you're amazing, when you're not.
Like, the resentment builds up from them. Like, have you ever been in a situation where like you're doing something, you think you're doing okay, they don't think you are, but they're not telling you, and you're like, I can feel this weird energy here, right? And
we have to have them telling us.
Literally, it's like, why not just tell me? Why be
it's vibes, isn't it? Don't lie.
Very like what you girls were saying about energy and all that. Like, I was talking to someone not long ago, and someone was saying that they feel like, for neurodivergent people especially, we do a lot of energy exchanging. Everyone does anyway, but we seem to feel it a lot more.
We rely on it.
We rely on it, and also it might have been Andrew actually I spoke to about this, because he was saying about pattern recognition. And
I was just about to say pattern recognition. Yes,
pattern recognition. And like, I don't know if it's where I've been in situations where like I got really bullied at school or whatever, or like as I've gotten older, as soon as I see those vibes, I'm like, oh,
I can always sense a vibe.
Even if I don't, I can't put my finger on it. And I'm like, there's something not quite right here.
Pattern recognition.
Body
language, how someone's tone of voice is, how they speak, how they're looking. All of that is pattern recognition. That's why we can tell when we're around a hater.
And genuine, because you're like, now they're going to do this, and I know that they're going to go and do that, and I know they're going to do that.
Like, I remember I worked with this woman once, and I don't say this lightly, she was an absolute psychopath, and I would never call, like, I'm being that's not a word I throw around a lot. And because some people do throw that around, I don't throw that word around, because
I've been called that in the last week, but carry on.
I know you have. All of it. But, you know what I mean? Like, but no, like, psychosis is real. Do you know what I mean? And I genuinely think this woman had like, she just was not, the way that she reacted to things and the way that she dealt with situations, I was like, this is not normal.
Scary.
and she created such an atmosphere that like she only had to say one thing or like look in my direction and I'd be like, oh my God, it's about me. And I knew she didn't like me. I knew she wasn't happy with something I was doing. And I'd say to her like, oh, is there a problem or is everything okay? She'd go, everything's fine, darling. And I'm like, well,
I
it's
know
not.
this.
It's
Tell
not.
me.
And in the end, I ended up sort of having a bit of a meltdown and I was just like, I can't do this. And it all kind of went to pot. And then they moved me to a different department. And the guy I had was completely different, like so chilled, so relaxed. And he was like, what do you need? Because it was the first time I'd gone into a workplace and said, look, I'm autistic, like I need some help here. And he was like, okay, like I don't know what I'm doing here, like what do you need? Kind of thing. He was quite upfront. And I was like, honestly, can you just like tell me if I'm doing something wrong? And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, because if I know I know that you're pissed off with me, I'm gonna know.
Really
Even
uncomfortable.
And he was like, really? And the amount of times I'd be like I'd sort of say something and he'd be like, how do you know you messed up? How do you know? And I'd be like, because I can just tell. I can
Yes.
tell the vibe.
Yeah.
And
So there's
oh,
a high chance, Amber, that lady was probably smiling at you because she was probably picturing you on fire or something. It wasn't that she liked you.
she fucking hated me. No,
Because you got the vibe.
no, she got the vibe that in her words, because we had to do this stupid quiz thing at work. It was like a personality quiz, and I come out as like a monkey, like you as an animal. And it was like camel, tortoise, something else, and a monkey. And it was like, no, you cannot work with us and be a monkey. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
God.
It was so weird. I was like, can I just leave?
I'll say some quotes later. I literally live for them. I think he's
Yeah,
fine.
even more
He's fantastic.
Oscarisms.
He's got my humor. So some of the stuff he comes out with, I might find more funny or brilliant than most people because it's just my humor.
Right, well, I'll leave you with this one. I took him to Sainsbury's and he chose his sister a bluey birthday card. He was really happy with it. We got it out the envelope. He was so overwhelmed. He ripped it into a million shreds. So I said, oh no, it's Oscar. It's Ola's birthday card. It's all ripped up. And he said, kill Ola. So I said, no, don't kill her. Love Ola. And he went, no, kill her. Oscar's turning evil. So he said, Oscar, kill mum. And I said, no, Oscar's not turning evil. You know, don't kill people. It's mean. I said, and then he said yes to kill people. So I said, well, who's going to make your milk? And he went, evil Oscar.
Evil Oscar.
Oscar will make the milk.
Evil Oscar. He's got
I would not expect you to come out of that thing.
He literally gets like a
I
face
thought
on him.
Brody
And
was bad.
he gets a face on him and he goes, Oscar's turning evil. I'm like, no, don't turn evil. And he's like, Oscar will kill you. Yeah. So, and his two words to describe his first morning back at school while sitting on the loo was abysmal and apocalyptic.
I mean, that's some amazing vocab.
Not bad for a class not verbal child, is it? Apocalyptic and abysmal. But yeah, it's turning evil. It's going to kill everyone, and then it doesn't matter if I'm dead because evil Oscar can make the milk.
I'd say a way of like processing stuff that's going around, because I must admit, like I'm 31, I still do stuff like that. Like if I'm in the shower, I can have a full-on conversation in my head with like and like when I tried to explain to my doctor when I went for my ADHD assessment, because I was like, yeah, like I had these voices, and she was like, okay, we're going to do schizophrenia. And I was like, no, I'm not schizophrenic. And I was like, I know it's
our imagination playing out scenarios and stuff.
It's like I have to have these different personas and these different scenarios to help me like work through stuff.
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to do that a lot. So I used to like make out the situations or storylines or things that maybe I wanted to live out in my head, well, live out in the real world. But because of now I realize it was my social anxiety, there was things that I may have wanted, like conversations I might have wanted to have or situations I may have wanted to be in. But because I couldn't do that in the real world, I would do that. And I lived in my head a lot because I actually preferred in head Charlotte and the world that she's in.
It's safe because you can control it.
We internalized it, whereas Remy lives it on the outside. That is, I reckon, how I would have been had I done that and not just had it inside.
Yeah, that's how I was as a kid, to be fair. Like I didn't do it with animate, but saying that, like I say, the age I am now, I'm 31, and like I'll put Brady's bed and he's got this big like teddy net thing of all his teddies. And I sit and I have to remind myself that they're not real. Like they're not like Toy Story, they're not gonna pop up and and I genuinely I'm like, I'm 31 and I have this thing that I have to tell myself. It's not real. But yeah, when I was a kid, I used to fully like almost like act it out. And then my brother would be like, why are you talking to yourself? What's wrong with you? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And now I've realised
I just go really quiet because it's inside here and I'm focusing on it. And I like sometimes would just rather be by myself because it's all in here and I prefer it sometimes.
Yeah.
And it does sound crazy now, but at the time it just felt totally normal. Like, yeah.
Normal, like it's normal for us. I think it's.
I remember doing it in my teens.
Yeah.
Like fully in my teens. I remember having like these random scenarios that I wanted or just like a fantasy
Quite
kind
a
of
good,
world. But
it's quite a good manifestation technique. Like if you could sell that as like a visualization technique and they would eat it up. And that's why I think a lot of us tend to kind of go towards that kind of woo-woo-ness because things like that are really
but we'd be great authors.
Yeah.
I could sell those stories and scenarios that I think up in here if I had obviously the executive function to do it. But I used to love living. I don't do it as much now, but I just look at Remy sometimes and see her doing what I just did and turning. And I love the fact that she's just so bold to do it because I wish I did.
It's nice. You just want to nurture that, don't you? And kind of like encourage it rather than because when I was growing up, like something to be embarrassed about.
Ways like the parents are that like, well, I didn't see any signs when you were growing up, but because you're a neurodivergent household, you're not going to see the signs because they're like you. Your kids
My household was so neurodivergent, and it's so crazy now to look back at. Literally, it was just so obvious, but it weren't as nice, but definitely without a doubt.
Because like our parents or our grandparents are neurodivergent themselves, the way that we all were would have been just their like the norm. Do you know what I mean? And
the only reason I got picked up on was because I was like fully non-verbal until I was 6. If it hadn't been for that, I don't think I think picked up on, especially being a girl.
See, it's mad 'cause I was reading really young and I spoke early and stuff, and this is where a lot of people be like, so well, how come they can speak? And we could probably save this for another episode for sure. But and it's people assume like they have no, autistic kids don't have communication. Well, a lot of them do.
They do. They're some of the most effective communicators. Did you see that stand-up thing the other day? And it was a guy doing stand-up. I'll find his name. And he was talking about his son who's autistic. And he said that. He was like, everyone says like autistic people don't communicate. He's like, I'll tell you what, my son is the most effective communicator I've ever met. And like, he gets what he wants and he gets it across and you know exactly what he's saying to you. And he was saying like, if he wants a biscuit, he just drags him to the cupboard and it's like, get me a flipping biscuit. Like, and he will be like, and then like if he doesn't get it, he just screams and he's like, I don't have the biscuit, like, you know what I mean? But he's sort of making light of it. But I'm just like, no, like everyone's
even children who are autistic who are really articulate. So like Remy, she can talk for days. She's got great vocabulary. She really is very direct, but she struggles in areas that say Chase didn't, and he was nonverbal. Like, so her emotional regulation, her sensitive to her being sensitive to certain thing, her needing that rigidity and all of the rest of the stuff, whereas he was really out like lazy, laid back and chill and all the rest of it, but he struggled in other areas. So people just think that autism's linear. They don't realize what a spectrum actually is, and that it could be it could look like a flower with like different sized petals all over the place.
I love that. So I always say soup. And that sounds really grim, but like flowers is nice, like little different, like the idea of their own little soup and everyone's got their own little flavours if they were.
Yeah, with different bits of the ingredients, but everyone just thinks that you have to have all of those typical traits and you all have to be savants with all these magical powers and all these other things because they grew up watching Rain Man, which was on last night. Love that movie. But
I can't watch it.
Not really. Oh no, I love it. I just love his character.
Because
that
film gave me trauma. No, I'm joking. I think it did a little bit. So what happened was, because obviously I was diagnosed really young, at like 3 or whatever. No one told me. And I read the word autism on a form. I was starting at a dance club and it said, like, does your child have a disability? And my mum had said yes and then put the word autism. And I was like, what the hell is that? And obviously I was 13, but I was always a really advanced reader.
And like same like Corin, like I was reading Harry Potter at like 6. Do you know what I mean? So it was weird. I started talking and suddenly I'm barreling through all the Harry Potter books and all the teachers were like, what? It was almost like
Where's this come from?
they were all shocked like the whole time I could understand everything. Anyway, and I remember reading the word and being like, what's that? And my mum was like, oh no, don't worry about it. Like I think she was just a bit like, I don't want to make you feel different. And it's like, well, guess what?
Yeah.
Stop.
I'm here.
Guess what? I already know. So yeah, I was a bit like, oh, okay, like whatever. And I tried to sort of do my own research, and the only thing I could find, obviously, this was like before Google and stuff. So I was in like the library. I'm really giving away how old I am here, but I was in the library trying to find things, and I think it was by coincidence, it was around like the end of term. So like everyone just kept putting films on. And one of the teachers was like, oh, I'm gonna put Rain Man on, it's a masterpiece. And I watched it and I was like, this is not me. Like, because that was the only thing of autism that I'd heard. I didn't know what it was. So I was like, oh, I can't be autistic because I'm not like that. Because the rest wasn't there. So I just walked away from that. And I was like, oh, they've got it wrong. I'm not autistic. They've got that completely wrong. I grew out of whatever it was. And then it was years later, I was like, oh no, I'm actually really super autistic, but just not the same way as Dustin Hoffman. That's all we have time for today on the Unfiltered podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe as it helps us get seen. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at UnfiltHERed. And you can also join our Patreon. Our Patreon is £5 a month. And in that, you get exclusive blogs, podcasts, bonus episodes, and Q&As with us all. All the links for those are in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And remember, the
her is no longer silent. Thank you for listening and make sure to like and subscribe.